Hello, my name is Cynthia and welcome to my Flosstube channel. I'm happy to be here with you today to share with you my stitching, some things I've made, crafted, some plans ahead, and just to catch up for a little bit. It's been quite a few months since I filmed. I had a new job opening in the end of the summer, actually the middle of the summer, and it basically has taken a long time to get adjusted to that job, and as much as I love it, I have not had as much time to stitch. So if I didn't have time to stitch, I didn't really have anything to share with y'all, but I have been stitching. I made a few ornaments, some Halloween ornaments, some Christmas ornaments that I'll share with you another time. But I've also been stitching, especially beginning this year in 2025. So I wanted to open up with some winter finishes. I have 4 new finishes and then a couple of previous ones. I like to do multiple crafts with stitching, or with needle and thread, I should say. So let me start with a few non-cross stitch pieces that were finishes, favorites from the past, and then I'll show you my new cross stitch finishes. The first one here is a designer on Etsy, and I've shown this before, but this was a favorite punch needle that I've done. It combined, I think, well, the winter and Valentine's, this little snowman with the heart. And I did size up the punch needle pattern. It was initially going to come to about here, so I blew it up maybe 20-30% on my printer, and it's very easy to do that with punch needle since it's just blocky shapes. And then I had this silhouette from Target probably 3 or 4 years ago, but you can find things like this. When I find something like that, I just snag it and then wait for something to inspire me to finish on it. And this one was, like I said, one of my favorites. Just a little bow on his hat with a snowflake button and some twine, and then the punch needle. So super easy to finish. I haven't done a lot of punch needle recently, but I hope to get back to doing some more. I have some pretty spring pieces that are in my lineup. And then this is another favorite. I actually hosted a Make a Snowman, Sew a Snowman sale. I've done it twice over the last 5 years, but this one I probably made in 2023. And he's a big guy. I found the pattern again on Etsy, and it has just a muslin body that's painted white with, I think I just use a Sharpie instead of making French knots. It's way simpler. The hat is made with muslin as well. It's painted. It's 2 pieces that are glued together. And then the instructions were fantastic. If you want to know where I got the pattern, I will try to find it. Like I said, it's just a primitive snowman pattern on Etsy. And he sits in this old enamel bowl that was at my mom's house. So I have him displayed on my hutch. And then let me show you the new things I made. I've got a cat that's kind of curious as to what I'm doing right now. Hopefully she won't knock anything over. But I did feel inspired. I like to think of things in series, like everything will be sort of the same color scheme, or it'll have the same backing fabric if it's a set of pillows, or just I don't know, kind of a vibe that I'm feeling with winter. And my winter colors, I don't usually stitch with red. I do some with Valentines that have winter and Valentines together, but for just winter, I love blue and silver, kind of minty colors. And I wanted to make a project bag for this series that I'm about to show you. And so I found this runner up in my, well, it was a runner, now it's a bag, but it was a runner that I found up in my mother-in-law's whole box of embroidery that I inherited. And this isn't gonna really match my house as far as you know, if I put it on a table or something, it would kind of clash with my more muted tones, but this is a fun use for it. And it's got a real, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got a real nubby texture. It was thick and it had this lace already on it. I just left it unfinished and sewed it kind of like that with the envelope style from Vonna Pfeiffer. I made it maybe a little bit wider, and then I had a little piece left over that I made into a thread bed, and I just kind of would throw on, it's a mess, but I would just throw a nest of threads on there from the project because it all worked from the same palette, and then I would use it as I needed. And I really like having one of these. It's just felt inside of the scrap of the runner. So that was kind of what inspired me to get started having a new bag. It does have 2 buttons there. I didn't want to mess with Velcro and buttons, and snaps, but it just has a wrap button. So that inspired me to go ahead and pull out this palette. I have seen this from, there goes Roxy. She's kind of zooming right now. Settle down, kitty. I'd been inspired by Heidi from Stitching Faye. I don't know, sometimes your brain just turns off when the camera comes on. But I'd been inspired by her a couple years ago. Actually, I think Michelle McGraw showed this first, inspired by Heidi. This, oh, I've got it clipped to the pattern. Let me loosen it from there. Can't show you the pattern. This button-up pattern by Prairie Schooler is, I think, more of almost a Christmas scheme. This is a printout of Heidi's stitching. I just did a screenshot and kept this as a reference. I actually didn't use all the same colors. She went just a little brighter than me, but I loved the idea of doing this in blue for winter so it wasn't as Christmassy. I'm probably not going to do all of the ones that sort of have more of a Christmas, like this is like bringing home the Christmas tree, and then this one as well, he's bringing home a Christmas tree. But I wanted to do this purely winter ones, and I borrowed from her palette. I used a lot of the choices, like this is the skin tone that's called for by, is that right? No, this is the skin tone called for by Prairie Schooler, which looks kind of strange. I wouldn't have picked it, but I followed what they had suggested, and then I used the greens and blues that Heidi used. Primarily I used 3810, which was a little bit darker. I think she had used 3766 and it was just a little too bright for me. I wanted it darker, so I actually did not use the same blue as Heidi. I picked it up, but then I ended up using the darker one, 3810. And then I used a lot of for all of the greenery, in fact it's looking pretty scrubby here, 3815. There's not a ton of colors in this project, lots of browns. I know I used some Classic Colorworks or Weeks that were charted on another sampler I'm going to show you that all fits in this palette. It was Weeks Cocoa, and I've used so much of it, there's not a lot left, but it has a little bit of variegation. So the Prairie School colors, of course, aren't overdyes, but I did add Cocoa, and I did use a lot of Teal Frost, which is one of my favorite Weeks Dye Works colors. It's teal, but it's not, you know, like tropical teal. It's more of my kind of teal, which is just very muted, and so it does tone down just a little bit. Here's the 2 I was able to finish. These are a lot of stitching. They're 50 by 50, but they actually end up being, I tried to figure it out, 50 times 50, over 2,000 stitches, right? I didn't actually do all. They wanted me to fill all of this in as gray, and what I used was a medium, or a my words are a little rusty, sorry. I used a even weave from Michaels, and I can't remember, Monaco. It's probably Monaco, but it's a softer Monaco than the one I used to get from like Joann's. It's pretty nice to work with. I dyed it with strictly red taupe. So I already have kind of a gray sky there. I didn't feel the need to fill all that in with gray, plus that would have been several hundred more stitches, and I thought it was just fine like this. It has the snowflakes that I stitched in there with just a single white stitch, and then I used that Teal Frost on the scarf, and then I think that's 927 for the pants in the house, and that same green I showed earlier. It does have a little bluebird instead of a redbird. I love redbirds, but in this scheme I thought I'll just pretend that that's like a blue jay, like a stellar jay or something. And I had this quilt scrap that I've used. I'll show you a bag I've made out of it too. It was very heavily damaged, lots of holes and maybe some water damage. So my mother-in-law had it in a bin cut up. There's just like a big, maybe yard piece of this old quilting. And so I wanted it to look kind of vintage. I used just this plain white piece. It's even got some of the binding here at the bottom. And it might have a few little oopses on it, like just some old stains, but it was for the most part intact. So, and I really wanted these to match perfectly as far as where my stitching was. And inevitably I do this. I can make one, you know, like really, really cute, but when I try to repeat it perfectly, I have a hard time. So it's not quite the same level, but they're the same size. And I had them displayed. I showed this just a second ago, but I have them displayed in this McCoy pot that I have that's kind of a similar color. And I want to make more of these, so this won't be my permanent display. It'll probably go in a dough bowl of some kind. But I love that little snow angel. I remember doing that so much when I was a kid in Kansas growing up. And I just thought they were so sweet. The backs are just sewn with muslin. I filled them with sawdust that I got from my dad. I was running out, and so his carpenter friend filled a bag for me. And I used an old piece of linen and then layered some felt because the glue showed through on the linen. And then I have a bulb pin with snowflakes and bells. I love bells on little pillows. It just makes me smile. So there's 2 of the Button Up by Prairie Schooler. And I have the pattern here, but for whatever reason, the cover sheet is covered, but you've seen it many times. I'm not going to do, like I said, all, I guess, 8 scenes or 6, 8, and then the wording. I'm just going to do about maybe 4 or 5 of these. So next year I'll add to this, and I have plenty of this quilt to go around. I was debating on how to finish this bottom edge. I was going to leave it plain, but I'm not the best sewer, and so it was a little bit crooked. I ended up putting just a twine bow there with some snowflake buttons that I got from 123 Stitch, and they are still available. They do have a what do they call that on a shank on the back, so I had to use my needle nose pliers and just bend and bend and bend that till it popped off, and they were really easy to use. These have the shank on them still, but it didn't matter. The ones on the back, though, I did take that off. So just a sweet display for winter, and it brings back some memories of childhood. I've done the next piece here on 3 other seasons. This is Country Cottage Needleworks. I always want to say the wrong one. It's Country Cottage Needleworks, not Little House, but they, I think, are mother-daughter. So yes, Country Cottage. So here is my version of Country Cottage Needleworks. It's just called Winter in the Seasonal Celebration Series. You've seen these. A lot of people just do the top, but I really like the words because they are nostalgic for me and things I think of with the winter season. Hot cocoa, snowmen, icicles, mittens, snowflakes, and sledding. And yes, I live in Texas, so there's not a lot of this going on. We did have an opportunity to build one snowman. It was about 18 inches high, and my dog ate the head off of it as soon as my kids had had made it. But we do love to be outside when it's snowing, and I love skiing. That's one of my favorite sports. I don't get to do it anymore, but lots of memories. I did find this ribbon at Michael's, and I was going to show you one thing I like to do when I'm doing a series. This is the same fabric, the same even weave from Michael's, dyed with taupe. I wanted it to be kind of gray. I bought some ribbon thinking I would make kind of a neutral bow that would have a snowflake on it. And when I got it, I don't know if you can tell too much. It doesn't really show up. When I got it, it was more yellow than I wanted. You can kind of see there. In person, it sort of reads as like a wheat kind of maize yellow. And with my taupe fabric, I didn't love the way it coordinated. It just clashed just a little bit. It doesn't show in this light. Right now you're looking at me and going, it's the same. But I did dip this in some charcoal dye. And even though that ribbon is polyester, it did darken it up. It made it less warm colored. It kind of toned it down so that it matched. But I often do that with things that don't quite work for me. I'll dip it in either some coffee or tan to make it more warm, or some charcoal or taupe to make it cool. So I just have it attached with magnets, and I laced the back. I used those same buttons from 1 2 3 Stitch on the top. I actually bought the bluebird that's supposed to go up here, or that can go up there. It's optional to add. But when I changed my colors, I made them a lot less bright. I don't know if you can tell there. The scheme is really cute, and my house didn't turn out quite as cute. It's not quite as stripy as I'd like. You can see it, but it's not quite as evident. It's just more toned down for my taste, and so the bluebird was way too bright, and I had it in here, but I'll use it on something maybe for a spring project, maybe for the spring celebrations. I'll be more mindful of it. I just didn't realize it was going to clash as much as it did. And these down here were supposed to be a bright blue and white, and I kind of toned those down with that Weeks Dye Works Teal Frost, and then the 927. And it has a heart in there. I'm not a big fan of hearts. I like them sometimes, but I wanted a snowflake there, so I just stitched that to the bottom, and it kind of covered up where that heart would go. So there's winter celebrations. I've done summer and autumn. I haven't even purchased the spring one yet, but I will do that one as well. Oh, and my magnets are not the best. Either that or my washers. But once I get it set on the table, it's fine. It's just trying to manhandle it a little bit. And that little easel I got from Michael's. It wasn't the perfect fit, but it worked. And I like that ticking behind it goes for all 3 seasons I've done so far, and it'll go for spring too. And then the last one I finished was a sled that I've probably had for 2 or 3 years. That's that whole, stash. I don't know what this is going to fit, but it'll be really cute once I do. I had this crochet go-go, I hope I'm saying that right, winter pattern, and this pattern is really hard to see, but I loved this little owl here in the corner, and so I decided to stitch that. This was a gift from a sweet subscriber. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I finally got around to stitching it. Here's this what does it say? Let It Snow with the burr. I use the same taupe, like I said, the same taupe Monaco or even weave. I'm not positive it's Monaco. And then I wanted it to fit this little sled piece. I probably should have finished the back, but this was just a raw wood piece from Target. Like I said, I don't know if it has a year, but it's at least 2021. Wow, I've had it a really long time. I think I've seen different pieces like this, though. It's not really that remarkable. I know it was raw wood, though, and I picked a kind of blend of a blue and green. I wanted it to be kind of like a vintagey color. And after I did it, instead of antiquing it, I kind of went the other way. I think it's called pickling. If you make something stained with white instead of brown, I think it's called pickling. I used a white wax that I got at Walmart, and I just kind of buffed it in and wiped it off. So it does have a little bit of a finish to it, a sheen. It turned out really cute. And then at the top of this cross stitch piece, like I said, I wanted it to fit on this sled a little bit fuller. It would have had a big space at the top or the bottom. So I actually sewed a piece of the, is it Petapoint? Is that what that's called? That linen that has polka dots on it. I'd used it for another winter piece, and I had just this little tiny scrap, and it was a reminder to me, oh, don't throw away your linen scraps, because I really like the way this linen looked stitched on the top. It almost looks like it's a snow pattern for the snowman, and then the snowflake was stitched. It's supposed to be a half piece like that. And that owl is so cute. I sort of wish it had a little bit of back stitching there or something, but this is the way it was charted, and it is very pretty. It makes me want to stitch more of her pieces. I think that giant winter sampler of hers has some of those same owls on it, and the Halloween sampler she did is so cute. All of her samplers are really cute. Just a really pretty piece. And then I used the same ribbon, and here you can kind of tell how it's not a wheat color, it's more charcoal. And that same script ribbon. If I use a ribbon that's really floppy, I prefer it to have a wire. I didn't, like I said, I ordered this online on Michael's, and when I picked it up, I realized, oh, it's not wired, but it's so pretty, I thought. And so what I do a lot of times is I'll have a wired ribbon accompanying it, and if it flops too far, I'll just put a dot of hot glue to make sure that it stays up as a bow, and just cut a dovetail at the bottom. Same snowflake. Like I said, it all kind of fits together as a series, and I'll have a video at the end of how it looks on my table. I wanted this finished a little sooner, but things got pretty busy, so it was well into February before it was all done, but I'll have it next year, and I'll probably leave it out till March. So those were all of my winter finishes, my new finishes to share. And if you have any questions about the color palettes or the patterns, I hope I shared enough for you to be able to find them, but if you have any questions, let me know. And let me put this up and I'll start a section of samplers. Okay, back to talk about samplers. I'll try to go quickly because it's getting dark, and I'll have to move faster. I'll run out of light. I have 6 samplers that I wanted to share with you, 4 that have quite a bit of work on that I would really love to finish this year. Some that are just ridiculously close. If I had a weekend, I could probably get them done. So hopefully I'll be showing you those sooner rather than later. And let's start with those. The Hollyberry Christmas, I did do a little bit of work on over the Christmas break, and it is still calling to me. It's such a beautiful piece. I want it finished. You've seen it probably quite a few times. It's a Stacy Nash primitive piece, and I have, I think, every one of them but summer. I have stables started, and I have spring. That's another one I'll probably show you next time, especially if I get this one done, but I don't want to work on more than one at a time. So here is Hollyberry Christmas. Like I said, it's almost embarrassing that it's not finished. I was doing a poem at the top though, or a lyric from a song instead of the alphabet, so that sort of slowed me down, or at least in my mind it slowed me down. It's not really, but last time I checked in, I had not finished this other side of the border here, and I'm adding in, that's the start of the lady at the bottom there, and like I said, I got that border all the way done and around, so I need to start looking for a frame. That'll also help me be inspired. I love that house so much. I did it with Dinky Dye Silk in Natural, which is a white color, not an ecru. Their ecru is actually called Pearl, which is sort of counterintuitive, but that house has been done for quite some time. And then the little dog to the side, like I said, I just added more work on the border, which is very tedious, but very beautiful, as all Stacy's borders are. This is 36 count limestone. I dipped it in tea. I wanted to leave it more like a greenish color, and it's really not, but that's okay. The white shows up really well. So there's Christmas at Hollyberry Farm. Like I said, it's almost embarrassing that it's not done, but I hope to get that done soon and start on spring. And then another sampler that is calling to me. I haven't worked on in a little bit of time, but I especially love it around Valentine's. I think of all the red. Louise Coulamore. I know Saltbucks Stitcher is working on this. It's a Hands Across the Sea sampler, and I've been working on it for several years, but it hasn't gotten work in a while. So I want to pull that back out. I used to think I didn't like stitching alphabets, but this one kind of proved me wrong because I actually really like it. So here is Louise Coulamore. I've got almost all the alphabet work done. Some of these at the bottom have, like this skip right here, I don't think, there might be some more over here, but there's lots of spaces on the alphabets. So those are super time intensive. There's like maybe a full strand and a half on some of these letters, and they'll take me, 30, 45 minutes just for one letter. So that does take a lot of time, but then when you get down to the bottom, it goes faster. And I'm starting in on the motifs there. It starts with, not just letters. You get a lot of different, which actually were way harder than I first thought they'd be. But once I get through to the more scrolly ones, those aren't as bad. I mean, none of them are bad, but not as time consuming. And I love that it had a Bible at the bottom. It's not as big as some of the Bristol, here I go again, I always say it wrong. Bristol Orphanage. I always want to say Bristol Myers because I used to work for that drug company, or with that drug company. And this is on a Vicki Clayton fabric, which I don't know if she's doing that anymore. It was a one-off that she was selling, and I think it's a mystery linen. It's really dark. It might be like a little bit darker than ale if you know Picture This Plus colors. And that floss has a lot of nice variegation. It is Threadworks lipstick. I bought a 20-yard piece of that, and I might need to buy more. It does take a lot of thread, like I said, more than I thought it would. So Louisa is calling to me. I want to work on her in February, as well as the Hollyberry Christmas. And then I'm really trying, I've said this before, so I hesitate to promise, but I'm really trying to finish Hawk Run Hollow Village. I actually had a finish. I can kind of count that as a finish in my list here of the block that had quite a few holes in it. This it's the 9th block for this sampler, but I actually am doing them out of order. For me though, I didn't have any of this middle ground filled in, and I didn't have the people finished. It took me a couple days, but I did finish that block completely. And I went ahead, and each block has a little bit of a different thread list. So I went ahead and filled in the threads that I need. And I mean, it's a big hunk already. I always keep my Hawk Run Hollow threads. I was trying to find it. I have a bag. Oh, I always keep them together because like you will come back to those colors. They will repeat, but you don't need them in every block. So I to sort of simplify, take some of it out, but oh my gosh, it's so pretty. This is where I just finished right here, this block. And like I said, I didn't have any of the middle ground filled in. There was a lot of stitching there. And these little horse people, lots of little details weren't finished, but now it's done. And I'm using, for the lettering, I'm using some hand-dyed flosses along with the called for DMC. And sometimes I don't use the DMC exactly where they tell me to. Like, I'm sure on those people I mixed some of it up because I didn't think it really mattered. I was just grabbing what was in front of me on some of them. Like, I know the people are different in the chart, but I think it looks good. The lettering, though, is one of my favorite flosses from Gentle Arts. And now it's escaping me. What is that one called? It's so good for lettering, in my opinion, because it looks... I've set them somewhere else. It looks really pretty. I might put it up here because I can't remember it. But I've used it consistently for the lettering throughout. And you can see it's kind of a bluey teal, but really, really dark. Almost like an indigo color. And I really like it for the lettering. So that block, the more lettering there is, it does go a little faster. But like I said, there's still so much stitching. And this is 36 count vintage country mocha. I'm doing it 2/2. I say this every time, but that's kind of controversial because a lot of people hate stitching 2 stitches or 2 threads on 36. It is like a tapestry on the back. It almost feels like a rug. It's a lot of thread, but since it's mostly DMC, it doesn't bother me as much. And I've started on this block here with the mill. That's the wheel of the mill. I think I'm gonna call that Elijah's, so it has my son's name. I did put my husband on the top since he's a pastor, and it says our church, First Baptist Lakeside. So it's going to have a little bit of personalization, not a ton, but I'll have my son's and my husband's name on there. And I'm starting to fill in too. You can kind of see the last block. Some people don't fill in the black, but I decided I wanted to. So I'm going to kind of do that as I go on the other blocks, but I feel like it is possible in 2025. I just have to stick with it. I'll love to have it on my wall. And then I'll take a break from the Hawk Run Hollows. I was gonna go right into the next one, but I'll be surprised if I'm willing to do that after I'm finished. I will probably just want to throw a big party when I finish though, because it's been going so long. And then another one that is almost finished. I don't know if I'll get to this in February, but soon. I'm just kind of giving you a preview of what I want to work on this year for my samplers. Permit Me Not to Stray is very close. I keep her in this bag. That's that quilt that was upstairs. And I was wishing I had more of this block because it matches the color scheme of my snow pieces, but there's none of it left. So, or it was in the middle and I didn't want to cut into it. So that's fine. Here's Permit Me Not to Stray. You've probably seen it before. It's old from Heartstring Samplery. I saw it on display at Silver Needle in Tulsa and just love these flowers is what drew me. And then it's a funky Adam and Eve. I changed them to cayenne. I think they're supposed to be pomegranate, which is a little pinker, but I love the red. And I have worked on this border. It wasn't all the way around. Now it is. I just need to keep filling it in. It's called a feather border. It has like 4 colors on each little circle. So there's more stitching there than you might think. and I am fudging a little bit with the grasses and the pods or whatever those are, but I think they look good. I've started on that peacock. I think I'd already done that. And then this is over one. So it is not my favorite, but it's going to be good when it's all done. So I really want to get this one finished this year as well. Like I said, it feels like it's ridiculously close, but there's still a lot of work, especially with that over one. So that'll be my Adam and Eve focus. I have my kind of alphabet monochrome focus, and then I'm still working on Hot Grown Hollow. I started a sampler for my birthday because I've had it in my stash. Oh, actually, let me show you another one I worked on. This is a bag from my friend Becky. Socks from Mom. We started this together, she and I, at her house with our friend Rachel, and it has gotten very little work, but it is such a pretty palette, such a soothing palette. This is Sweet Temper, sampler by Shakespeare's Peddler, Teresa Bennett, and I again saw this at Silver Needle. This is a PDF though that you can buy online, is where I got it, and I just love the colors on this one. I really want it to be in my bedroom. So we started that 2 years ago now, and I've pulled it out very little, but I pulled it out a couple weeks. In fact, I still have my needle in there. I forgot I put it in there. And I'm just kind of starting at the bottom. I filled in some of these berries. This is 40 count. It's unnamed as far as the dyer, but I think it's called Heirloom something. It has a really pretty blue-green color to it, which I'm not sure is really showing true right now. But if you put it next to, say, like a Vintage Country Mocha, you can kind of see that it's more of a green. And I love these blues on there, the bright blues. I just wanted to finish a little more on it, maybe get this side of the border and maybe that sheep, just kind of work on that. This last row is a satin stitch, so I'll do that last, or I might do it as crosses. I haven't decided. And I don't think this house is filled in, but I might fill it in because I don't know if it'll look good with my fabric that I have. But I just wanted to get some work in on that, and I will try to do that some more this month because that color scheme, it really was calling my name. And now I've got some threads that don't make a lot of sense. Oh no, that's them. There is some red in that piece. There is some darker colors, but for the most part, it's a muted kind of palette. And then the one that I started for my birthday that I just referenced, I've had forever. And I finally said, I've got to start it sometime. I might as well get a little bit of work on it. This is Hannah Katerina by a Scarlet Letter. I always have to make sure I say that right. There's a picture on here, like an actual photograph, and it is huge. It has one of those geode birds in the corner, which is where I start. I always start in the bottom left. And it has several German phrases on here, is why I was drawn to it. It's very old. It's from 1734. I think that's the oldest one I have. Sarah Woodham is really old too. She's a 17, but this one is by far the oldest. And it has several German phrases on here. My dad is German. My grandmother spoke German, so that was very appealing to me. And the colors on it are kind of surprising. You've got some really, really bright blues in that bird, and there's some really, really bright reds in the top. So it's got lots of florals and lots of detail. Like I said, it's big. I used another piece of my Vicky Clayton linen, and this one she calls Hazelwood. It's 36 count. I was going to get a lighter linen, but I like the way this is going. And like I said, this is just maybe a couple days around my birthday, August 31st. But see that bright, bright blue? I wanted to get that bird done and then kind of move from there. But it is kind of complex stitching as far as all the little color changes with the... I need to almost highlight it. In other words, it wasn't something I could follow super easily, but I'm using the called for DMC and maybe a few other subs, but not yet. I might, you know how, if you watched me at all over the years, you know I always change things, but for the most part, I'm going to use the DMC and just see where it goes. But I was so excited to get that started. It was supposed to be a birthday start like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So it finally happened. And like I said, I want to work on that bird, but we'll see where it goes. This is a bag from my dad, and it's from Rifle Paper Company, one of my favorite fabric lines. And here I go with another thread that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll have to sort this out at the end. Like I said, I'm a little rusty, but thank you for letting me share my samplers with you. I do enjoy working on those. The little collections I make of seasonal pieces are fun, but I ultimately want to have a collection of samplers. So I think my friend Michelle calls them, the little seasonal pieces I do are like snacks, like chips and french fries. And I need to get to the meat for my big ones. Not to denigrate a small or a sampler, because all stitching is beautiful and worthwhile, but I do like to have the bigger pieces too. So I have to find good balance and just keep chipping away and not feel discouraged. So let me get out my Valentine plans. I'll try to show those to you really quickly, and then we'll be done. Thanks. Okay, last section I want to show you is Valentine's coming up. I do love to stitch Valentines, mainly because I can't find primitive Valentines in the stores. When you go to Hobby Lobby or even, different Marshall stores, everything is so bright, bright pink, bright red. And so I have this entire collection here that's gotten pretty big over the years of more primitive colors. And that's what I want to focus on for Valentine's Day coming up. I love stitching primitive pieces, and I've kind of tried to steer away from it, but I thought, well, why? I like doing it. I know it's simple stitching, but it's just what makes me happy. So here's some examples of some embroidery I've done. I've shown these before, but I just did a little pocket. I made this up. There wasn't a pattern. I think I may have seen something like it on Pinterest, but I wrote my family's name on a piece of muslin that I had coffee dyed, and then I stitched it along with some French General fabric on the back, and I kind of keep just a perpetual Valentine in there that I can add to each year. Like for this year, things I've appreciated about my family member or that I'm praying for them, ways to encourage them. So it'll kind of be a keepsake. It'll be a keepsake as well. So I have all these little notes for my loved ones, and I keep those in this galvanized bucket. I actually have everything just kind of strewn in here. I have it arranged differently on my island, but it's the first thing you see when you come into the kitchen. And then this was a piece from, I believe Primitive Hair has it as a freebie. I've seen a ton of people stitch this. I loved it in red though. You can make it in whatever color you want. And I want to say this was a Threadworks color, Stepping Stone. It's kind of a dark, dark red, cayenne red. And this was some felt that I had gotten from a friend. I think that was from JoJo. And then another one from Primitive Hair, I think. This is called Valentine. This one's really floppy, but it's still cute. I think this is sawdust in there. I just was running out, and I always like to have bells. And then just some flannel on the back, or not flannel, felt. And then, oh, something has chewed on this. That's funny. I might need to put a little button there or something. This was a Brenda Keys has a sampler like motif book, and I took a few out of there. Look at their long arms. That's supposed to be me and my hubby, and I put 2021, so gosh, 4 years ago. But look, something has gotten in there. I guess that's 100% wool, so I might need to put this away with some cedar. I hadn't thought about that. And then this was my eldest daughter's first stitch from a Barbara Anna pattern in Punch Needle Primitive Stitcher magazine. I did it, and she did that on Ada, and like I said, it was her very first stitched. She hasn't stitched since. She's been doing diamond painting, so I got her one for Christmas, and she likes it. And it has some really cute lace and buttons, and then the back is black and white. So that is actually my daughter's piece, but I throw it in here until she has her own home. And then these little guys, I stitched from a pattern by Primitives by Denise. She's on Etsy. This is actually, it can be either a gingerbread man or a snowman, and you just don't put the hat on if you want to make it gingerbread, and you paint it brown, which that was the first thing I had made in this kind of primitive style, and they were terrible. They were so cringy, but these guys were a little better. I still think I can do better now, but you know, that's what practice makes perfect. They didn't have the hearts on them in the pattern though, and I wanted them to be good for Valentine's Day, so I added the little cutouts myself from a red homespun. And I just think they are so cute. I've given away several of those. They make really nice gifts because they're basically just muslin and a stick, and you can paint them yourself. And then I am almost out of light, so let me hurry. This is some fabric that I've dyed. I wanted it to be kind of a darker brown, but it actually has a reddish tone to it, so it'll be good for Valentine's. It's a even weave again from Michaels with cocoa brown and what was the other color I used? Camel. Cocoa brown and camel. And so this is what I came up with, and look how red it is. I'm wearing a Sooner shirt today because our church was representing our favorite team for Super Bowl Sunday, and so I am wearing my husband's shirt actually in red, but it kind of matches my shirt a little bit. And I'm gonna do, here's just a little bit of haul, a Pineberry Lane piece that I've wanted to do for a while, a bushel a peck. And my mom used to say that to me, a bushel a peck, a hug around a neck. So this one makes me happy. I might have to change those colors just a little bit on the people so they don't clash, but I'll just use, you know, a real simple one. And I did pick up an anchor color. I didn't know that anchor was being, I guess, acquired by DMC. I don't know if they'll make it anymore. So I went to get my favorite Anchor 20 and it's not available. I saw Lori talking about that on Once Upon a Stitch and I was like, oh crud, that's my favorite floss. So I got Anchor 19 to see what that looks like. And it's a little pinker, but I still think it's pretty and it'll be nice for that tree. So Anchor 19, and I guess we'll just have to find another red other than Anchor 20, which is okay. And then another primitive piece. I have an idea for this. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I love this one by Lucy Beam. I'm going to change the crown a little bit and the face probably, but I love the stocking and I love the colors. And I want to make it, instead of as a pillow, I think I want to make it as a stocking. And I had kicked around the idea of making it able to be stuffed or of having the little angel in there already. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. If I'm going to do it as one piece and just cut around it and put it on a string, and I want to do it more than once. So this one will have, I got some of the called for colors. They're so pretty. I have never stitched this faded rose before. I really like the variegation on that. That's what's called for on the stocking. And then I got the, I have had this one before, antique lace. It's just a really pretty ivory color. So on this same fabric, and it's not very big, I might have a little bit of an issue, but I don't think so. It's kind of blowing out here in the window, but that is kind of close, but hopefully it's bright enough that it'll show on this fabric. And maybe one side is darker than the other, or maybe I can darken this even a little bit more because I hadn't realized those are kind of close. But I'm going to, like I said, at least make one of these stockings, and I'm going to plan to cut it out. And I just thought it'd be pretty to have like 2 or 3 in a row. I never know what to do with a stocking that's just by itself because it kind of feels lonely. So I want to put it on a little garland, and it's very tiny. I want to say the stitch count is 88 wide and 141 high. So maybe a little bit more than I thought. And that'll be a good solid stitching, but I'm not going to do all of it. And then the last thing I wanted to do for sure in this next month is another one of my angels. I've made one of these and they were so fun. My dog tried to steal this afternoon when I had it set out. This is my version of Chestnut Junction's, I think it's called Arabella Angel, and I got some water on this. I'm not sure how that happened, but you can see I deepened it up a little bit and I used a little bit different yarn. This is just what I had available, but I wanted to make another one in a different color scheme, and instead of it saying love, I was going to do one that says hope. And so I want to do this but with like maybe a cream and gold kind of version. And so I got some yarn from DMC, and if you've tried to dye threads before, dyeing yarn is really hard because it's synthetic. This is actually 100% wool dye from DMC. You can get it on 123 Stitch. And I think I'm going to dye this kind of a brownish gold color for another angel to have a different color hair and different hairstyle. But these are super simple to cut out. You just put them on muslin. I won't show the whole pattern, but you just cut it out on muslin and then stitch around it and put it together. So I wanted 3 of these. I have 3 daughters, so I thought it'd be sweet to have 3. So that was my catch up on all the things I've been working on and that I plan to work on. Hopefully I can show you some nice updates soon. I alluded to my new job. I am actually kind of like a volunteer coordinator for a program that works in schools for 4th graders. It's called Academy 4. I'll try to put a picture here of all my volunteers. I'm basically in charge of 112 volunteers that I had to get help recruiting amongst churches and community groups, Chamber of Commerce, that kind of thing. And I am in charge of this group of people that come into this wonderful group of people that come into a school 1 time a month and mentor a 4th grader for 90 minutes. If you live in the Fort Worth or Azle area, I'll put a link to that website below if you're interested. It's a wonderful program. It's a lot of work. It almost feels like running a VBS like once a month, but it does get more streamlined as I've learned and as I've gone forward, so that I can sort of return to my stitching hobby, and it is part-time. But like I said, it's really taken a lot of my mental bandwidth to get this job sort of sorted. So I have enjoyed it very much. I intend to continue with it. It's very worthwhile. It takes a good piece of my degree in family psychology with sort of a social work background as well, working with families and schools and principals, but I'm kind of the guest speaker. I like to be the guest speaker. More so teaching, I don't think would be for me, but I love to be the guest speaker, to come in once a month and love on the 4th graders. They all say, Miss Cynthia, when they see me. And it's just a really sweet time. It is exhausting though, to be in charge of that many volunteers and make sure everybody's where they need to be and that every kid has a mentor. So it's been a lot, but I've been very happy to be involved with it and very proud of the work we've done in Azle at our little elementary school. So that's kind of what I've been up to. I do want to ask at the end here, I started out my channel hoping to focus on more finishing maybe than you see in other Flosstube presentation, just because that's what I want to see. I want to be inspired with how to actually use these things in my home. I think I'm more of a decorator than just a stitcher. I love to put vignettes together in a whole hutch or a whole countertop display. And so for me, I really wanted to inspire people you can finish things, and it might turn out a little wonky, but that's okay. It's better than being under a box or in a box under your bed. I do have some catching up to do over the last year. I've gotten a little behind, but I love finishing things, or I love having finished things enough that I'll do it. So that was part of my emphasis on starting my channel, but also my name is Stitching in the Light because I started stitching my hot grown hollow from square one with asking people to give me prayer requests in the comments or in direct message or even email if they wanted it to be private, so that I could pray for other stitchers while I did hot grown hollow. And I got to thinking about that. It's been so long since I had asked for any requests. When you pray for someone, you really do feel like you are close to them, even if you've never met. I think of like Jerry and Darlene and a few others that I prayed for. And it was, a deep issue for them or an important issue. And I feel like I have a bond with them that's special. So if you have a need or you just want to ask me for prayer, I'm going to keep a list beside me as I stitch hot grown hollow and just lift those concerns up. And like I said, it does create a bond. It does help us to share our hearts with one another, even though we're in a strange kind of forum here on YouTube. And as I finish, so leave those requests below, like I said, and I'll also put my email. But as I finish all of my videos in the book of Psalm, chapter 90, verse 17, wow, I'm rusty. It says, may the favor of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands. Thank you for letting me visit with you. Have a great one.